On a quiet suburban afternoon, a young black boy walked home from school with his backpack slung over his shoulder, humming softly to himself. He had no idea that within minutes, his life would change in ways he could never have imagined. From the corner of the street, a patrol car slowed down, its driver eyeing him with suspicion. What followed wasn't just a routine stop. It was a cruel act that would leave an entire community shaken. But what this officer didn't know was that this boy's father held one of the most powerful positions in federal law enforcement. The neighborhood looked picture-perfect on the surface. Trimmed lawns, white picket fences, and an air of quiet order. But beneath that surface lay unspoken tensions that many chose to ignore. For years, black families who moved into the area had quietly endured the stares, the whispers, and the subtle forms of exclusion. 13-year-old Malik was one of the few black students in his middle school. Bright, curious, and full of promise, he loved reading detective novels and dreamed of becoming an investigator one day. His teachers admired his sharp mind, but some classmates mocked him, whispering words they had heard at home. Still, Malik carried himself with resilience, knowing his family always reminded him of his worth. That day, Malik had stayed late at school to work on a science project. With his backpack heavy and the sun dipping low, he took the familiar walk home, headphones tucked in his pocket. A patrol car had been circling the area, responding to a call about a suspicious person. To the officer inside, Malik's presence in that neighborhood, walking alone, wearing a hoodie, was all the excuse he needed. As Malik turned down his street, the car pulled over sharply. Tires screeched against the pavement. The door swung open. The officer stepped out, his hand already gripping the pepper spray canister on his belt. For Malik, there was no warning, only confusion and a sudden rush of fear. The officer barked commands, though Malik wasn't resisting. He was frozen, his backpack halfway slipping from his shoulder. Without pause, the cop advanced, spraying directly into the boy's eyes. Malik screamed, clutching his face, stumbling backward onto the pavement. His cries echoed down the street, drawing curtains back in nearby houses, but no one rushed out to help. The officer's tone was sharp, dripping with assumptions. He accused Malik of lurking, of fitting the description, of not belonging. He grabbed the boy by the arm, forcing him to the ground as Malik gasped for breath, blinded and terrified. Inside his mind, Malik's thoughts raced. Would he ever see his parents again? Would anyone believe his side of the story? He thought of every news headline he had overheard at home. Names of young black boys and men who had faced the same fate, often with tragic endings. Minutes passed before another patrol car arrived. Neighbors whispered from behind their blinds, careful not to get involved. Some recorded on their phones, but stayed hidden. The second officer, unsure, followed the lead of his partner, cuffing the boy roughly despite his obvious agony. Meanwhile, Malik's father, Special Agent Marcus Johnson, was still at work in the city. A man respected across federal agencies, he had spent his career upholding the law, dismantling criminal networks, and training officers on ethics and conduct. He believed in the justice system, even when it had shown cracks, but his belief would soon be shattered. When Marcus's phone buzzed with a frantic call from his wife, her voice trembling, he froze. Their son hadn't come home. Someone had spotted him pinned to the ground by police just blocks away. Marcus's heart pounded. The seasoned agent who had faced violent criminals and high-stakes operations felt a different kind of fear, a father's fear. By the time Marcus arrived, Malik was still on the ground, handcuffed, his face streaked with tears and burns from the pepper spray. A crowd had gathered now, murmuring, some recording, others shaking their heads in quiet outrage. The officer who had attacked Malik stood firm, arms crossed, projecting authority. When Marcus stepped forward, flashing his badge, the officer's face paled, but his arrogance lingered. He muttered excuses about doing his job, about protecting the neighborhood. Marcus knelt beside his son, whispering words of comfort as he carefully wiped his face with a cloth he carried. The boy's sobs broke the silence in a way no one could ignore. Then Marcus rose to his full height, his voice calm but commanding. He identified himself as a high-ranking FBI official, outlining the officer's violations in precise detail. The crowd stirred, some gasped, others whispered in disbelief. The very system the officer claimed to uphold now stood against him, embodied in the father of the boy he had brutalized. The local police chief arrived within minutes, called urgently by Marcus himself. Tension rippled through the scene. The officer's fate was sealed, not just because of Marcus's position, but because the truth was undeniable. Videos of the incident circulated online within hours, exposing the cruelty for the world to see. In the days that followed, the officer was suspended pending investigation, but the scars left on Malik and his family would last far longer than the headlines. The boy struggled with nightmares, flinching at the sound of sirens, his innocence fractured by an act of hatred he never deserved. For Marcus, the experience became a painful reckoning. He had dedicated his life to protecting the nation, but even his badge couldn't shield his son from the prejudice that black families faced daily. It was a sobering truth. Justice on paper meant little if it wasn't upheld on the streets. Community members rallied, holding vigils and demanding reform. Some neighbors who had once stayed silent now spoke out, ashamed they had watched injustice unfold without intervening. The incident became a spark, igniting conversations about racial profiling, accountability, and the need for systemic change. But for Malik, the most powerful moment came weeks later, when his father told him something he would never forget. Marcus reminded him that while this world was unfair, Malik's worth was not defined by hatred. He was brilliant, loved, and destined for greatness. The video of the incident continued to spread online, viewed by millions. People were outraged, heartbroken, and inspired to act. The question lingered: if this could happen to the son of an FBI official, what about the countless children without such protection?